going live. And you're live.
All right. So want to welcome everybody to a little FAU After Dark. No spring game today, and it really sort of hit that there was no spring game when I woke up, and I'm like, man, should be working today. So we'll talk a little FAU here tonight. This is the radio broadcast team, and we haven't seen each other actually in a while together. So this is a nice stay-at-home opportunity for us to kind of hang out for a little bit. So Bartels, why don't we kind of go around the horn here and just reintroduce ourselves to everybody. First, we'll go with me, then Bartels, then with Mikey. So again, Ken Levica, play-by-play voice of FAU. I'm coming to you tonight from Tamarack, Florida. And this is an FAU After Dark, so you got to have a drink in hand if you're going to do that. So I've got a little Patron Silver. That's what we're drinking here tonight, hanging out FAU After Dark. So go ahead, Bartels. Reacquaint yourself.
Chris Bartels over in Tampa. Enjoying a nice little glass of Crown Vanilla.
There you go.
Just sitting tight. Glad to see the fellas. This is my guy time here, man. I almost feel like setting up some red solo cups so we can get some beer pong going right now.
Let's go. By the way, and I know Mikey, this is gonna hurt him, but Mikey, I think the days of beer pong are pretty much dead for the rest of time now, right? Like that we can never play that again. It's too unsanitary.
We're gonna have to figure out some other sort of.
Oh shit, you're right. Oh my.
Have drinking games.
Yeah, I know. See, it hurts. Mikey, why don't you go ahead
and still working
reintroduce.
So we'll be all right. I am Mike Marechko, and aside from being the guy who probably consumes as much or more of liquid solids and everything else on road trips, executive producer, pregame, halftime, postgame host, and happy to be a part of the team with these guys. Coming to you tonight from Boynton Beach, Florida, and Holdings is that. To my knowledge, they're still a sponsor, so I'll still support.
There you go.
Funky Buddha, maple, bacon, coffee, porter. My last one that I had in my 4-pack, so that means it's time to go out and put the mask on and restock.
Put the mask on and get yourself set. And Funky Buddha has been so good to us over the years. So good job by Mikey there representing here tonight. So what we want to do is if you are coming for inside information and for a breakdown of the FAU roster and all that stuff, you might as well just not watch this because that's not what this is going to be. But I think us coming together, being able to shoot the bleep, as they would say, and talk a little FAU on what should have been the spring game, tell some stories, and just kind of hang out. I think that's really the plan for all this. And Bartels, man, like this was supposed to be a day where you were going to come over from Tampa and meet up with me and Mikey, and maybe we'd go to Beer Garden beforehand and then get ready for the spring game, and nothing. And it's a bummer. I knew it's coming, but there's just so much uncertainty, and I don't know about you, but I keep hearing college football might start in September without fans, or maybe November, or even it becomes a spring sport, and I don't even care. I just want it to come, and I'm just worried it's not going to come, you know?
I think for the sake of everybody's sanity, getting on some sort of normal routine, you know that when spring is here, you have for FAU, you have the red and blue game. You have kids trying to make an appearance. You have kids who've been working all since last year who have been red shirts for an opportunity to earn a position, earn a starting spot, or even a walk-on trying to earn a scholarship. And now you have to wait for maybe, just a chance that they have a chance in the summer to do the same thing. It's sad, but the reality is we got to keep up with what's going on, social distancing, and try to get this thing flattened out and erased.
I do want to ask you, and I know Mikey and I have asked you about it before, but we always ask you about your like regular season playing days and all your picks and the 2007 Sun Belt Championship, but the spring game was a hell of a lot different when you played at Lockhart, and the spring game was at the Ox, I feel like, in those days. Oh, do you have any notable spring game moments, like anything that stands out where you were like, that was cool, or was it just something that happened?
No, it was my first year. It was my redshirt year. We played at Lockhart, and we did 1 offense and 2 defense versus 2 offense and 1 defense, and it was awesome. It was great, real competitive. We had the jersey. It was awesome. It was a full game. I didn't play very much. I played like 3 snaps maybe at the very end. The next year, still a walk on, trying to earn a scholarship. Um, One kid became ineligible right before spring. Another kid uh, had a drug testing, ineligible. Um, the second spring game, scrimmage or whatever, right before the final game, the safety breaks his tibula fibula, out for the year, has
Who was
surgery,
that?
out for Tahim Acevedo.
Oh, I was okay.
Yeah. So they were like, all right, well, Bartels, we need you to go from corner to safety. I was like, all right, I guess. We played like 2 coverages, cover 3 and cover 2. They didn't want to put me in man-to-man, so they put me just in the box to hang out with Serge. And
Yeah.
ended up doing some good things and earned a scholarship off of that. So it's fun. It's just the grueling. What sticks out to me is the pre-spring. So you have like what do they call it? Like Hell Week, I guess you'd call it for baseball.
Yeah.
Well, we have like 4 weeks of this. So you're on the field at like 5:30. You got your stretches, and you're going drill to drill. And that's back in Coach O'Connor's day, and he would have the ladders. And by the time I would get to his ladders, the actual old school ropes, right? I wasn't getting through those without clipping it, and he'd always just say, "Carlos, pick up your feet." I mean, his running back coach, but that really stuck out to me with how much fun that really was.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you come out of spring like, yeah, I'm ready for summer vacation. Let's get to the beach.
So what I want you to do, Bartels, don't say it, but in your head, come up with what you think was the highest number of attendance of any of the spring games that you ever played in when you were playing for FAU in the mid and again, 2007 was your senior year. So in that span, 2004 to 2007. And then Mike, you and I are going to do a little prices right here. Okay. So Bartels has the number in his head. Mikey, you guess what you think was the highest attended spring game at the Oxley Center in Bartels' time at FAU.
I'm going to go with, let's say, 200 people in attendance.
Bartels, I'm going to go with 40. How we
40?
looking?
Oh, I was way up there. One year, Corey Small's dad brought up his barbecue pit to the track. We played the game on the actual track, not behind the Ox. And I feel like there were more people there for that than the actual game. So I was going to say like 500, 600 people.
All right. I didn't take into account the Corey Small barbecue situation.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Well, how many people are watching the game? We just said how many people were there.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. There's a qualifier to that. No, but it's changed so much from what it was. I don't know about you guys, but obviously the last month has been really, really weird, and trying to reconfigure lives and trying to make a paycheck and all that stuff. But you guys are both teachers. Like for me, I'm still working in radio. My hours have been cut down where I actually have to be in the studio, but I've been sort of business as usual because I've still got the radio show to do. But you guys, Bartels, you do online courses, and Mikey, you obviously not allowed in school. And are you trying to, Mikey, teach virtually now? Like, how are you doing what you're supposed to do?
No, I mean, we are not fully online the way Bartels have been doing, even as we're on plane rides, getting ready to go to Muncie, Indiana, and other places around the country. But we certainly adjusted to that on the fly. Fortunately, the academic network that our school's a part of, they already did have a pretty solid virtual infrastructure in place because they do some things internationally, do some things with students that they can do virtual field trips and these virtual, what they call edutainment series, where we'll actually bring in some guest speakers that can do, chats with the kids instead of having an in-person assembly. Yeah. So they already had that framework pretty well set up in advance. So we were ready to go, probably even in much better shape, definitely, than a lot of the other public schools. Because I know the rest of Palm Beach County was kind of scrambling, had a lot of issues. Broward County seemed like it was even worse down where you guys, Kenny is and Bartels is from. So we were ahead of the game pretty much on that, and I'm enjoying the shorter commute now at least. But it's definitely
there you go
challenges and adjustments compared to what we have in a normal setting.
Mikey brings up a kind of a funny situation that came about this year. So, traveling is always one of the biggest parts of the football season. And Bartels has been with me long enough, and Mikey knows me well, but this was the first year he was traveling with us as the executive producer of everything. I am kind of neurotic and need to be babysat. Like that's probably the best way to put it. And Bartels has really seen it firsthand, and Mikey really got indoctrinated with it this year. But it would be so. FAU flies out, and it has for a long time. It used to be out of Fort Lauderdale when Schnellenberger was coach, and then it transitioned into PBI when it was Charlie Partridge, and then it stayed at PBI. We fly charter and out of one of the separate terminals off to the side of the airport. And it's always sitting and waiting during the week to figure out what time we need to be at the airport because we need to beat the team so we can be on the plane. By the time the team buses get there, they get on the plane and we go. So I'm always running around like a maniac. I'm always completely overwhelmed, like jittery and uncomfortable and terrible to be around. This year, though, with Bartels transitioning into online teaching and Mikey, who's trying to get stuff done on like a day out of the office because he's traveling on Fridays and wasn't able to be in school. It leaves me like I've got to bounce nervous energy off of these guys. I've got to like be neurotic to these guys. And they're like on their laptops. Mikey's sending out lesson plans. Bartels is trying to track down students and on the phone constantly. And it was tough for me because I had to spend time with myself before we would get on the plane, and I didn't know what to do. And I'm sure Bartels noticed, like I would sit and try and prep at the airport, but I'd be like pacing around.
You just had to talk to somebody.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Did you see, like at the airport, they've got that portable hot chocolate maker. It's like a coffee/hot chocolate maker. How many cups of that hot chocolate would I drink? Like it was just me like downing stuff just to keep myself occupied. Like I really hope this year you guys do a better job of entertaining me at the airport.
Well, I think Mike, you would agree. Most of your nervousness approaching the airport was trying to figure out what route you were going to run the next morning. You know what I mean? Like on your phone, trying to figure out, okay, I need to run 17 miles today, but I don't have the gloves. Even though I'm from Chicago and I could, I'm a cold weather guy, I still need gloves to run outside. Where am I going to run to?
Yeah.
Mikey and I were more nervous for you about having to run that far. If that was Mikey or I, we're done. I'm telling you now. You tell me I have to run 10 plus miles. I'll see you at home. I'm not doing that.
Well,
I'll meet you at the bar.
And I'm like a dumbass. I decided to run the Palm Beach Marathon this year. It was actually the morning after the Conference USA title game. So FAU won the title game. We went down, took some pictures with the trophy, all that stuff. I went home and then I woke up at 3 a.m. To go run this marathon. But I spent all fall training for this thing. And so I would wake up at like 4 a.m. on a Saturday morning, run 15 or 16 miles, whatever city we were in, and then I'd meet up with these guys for breakfast. But it always it would be me downing these pasta dishes on Friday night and maybe having a drink, and then that was it. And I totally blew it last year. Damn point, like so stupid.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, it's been great traveling with you guys, and I had Bartels as a roommate all year, and we
didn't max it out though.
But I feel like I haven't gotten the full Ken LaVicka road trip experience.
Oh, you haven't?
We're so limited. Discipline. I give you a ton of credit for doing it, but I also feel jit.
Yeah. It's you kind of were jip, but I'm also an old man now. Like this is look at this. And look at this, Mikey. Look at this island that's forming here on the top of my head. Like this is how old I'm getting. Like my hairline has receded very fast in the last year and a half. Like I'm aging, but
need the headset on, cover that up.
I know, seriously, but. I was yesterday thinking back to the season as a whole and the road trips and just the year and how like the first month was just so much like it felt like 2018. It felt like it was going to be a continuation to 2018. And then This has happened before, Bartels, and this is what happened in 2017. And Mikey was a part of the broadcast crew then, but he wasn't on the trips. The same exact thing happened in 2017. We went to Western Kentucky, and absolutely everything changed. And I think it's pretty suffice to say that, and maybe you guys disagree, but that Western Kentucky trip, just the feel of that trip, it was coming off of the bounce back win at Old Dominion after that demoralizing Friday night loss to Marshall, but it was just total focus. It was cold as hell. It was brutal on Friday night, Saturday morning. I cut off my marathon training run because it was 26 degrees. And I'm like, this is stupid. What am I doing? But just we got to the field, we got to the stadium. Lane was locked in, the team was locked in. They got down 14-0 and came roaring back. Like that was the season right there. Like that was the season, that Western Kentucky trip.
Oh, it's so huge. I mean, you had some bright spots before that. Getting that non-conference road win up in Ball State was big. They'd taken care of business in a couple of other games in division. Yeah, when you talk about trying to bounce back off the disappointing, blown Friday night game at home against Marshall, you figure you should take care of business at Old Dominion. Yeah. There's enough stories from that weekend, which we got to dedicate some time to before we're done here tonight. But you're right. As far as turning things around, like, all right, now we're back in this, take a ton of momentum into the Shula Bowl. The defensive plays, because the offense, remember, that was also a weird game where we're feeling good going into it, but then things start, being pretty stagnant on offense, and you needed a bunch of defensive turnovers and Nick Tronti to really ignite things late for that comeback.
I think with the offense, the way that Weiss and Lane were able to plug and play different pieces to fill in the void, which there was, I think it's evident there was a running game void of not having Motor back there and not having Karras back there, but they did a great job distributing the football. John Mitchell getting involved, Chauncey, like you mentioned, getting involved, Mikey. But for me, it's the defense. When the defense played well, the entire team played well. When something had to happen, in my eyes, and I could be biased, but it seemed like the defense went ahead and made it happen. They're walking around making plays. Rashad Smith all over the place. Kiki Leroy doing a good job. James Pierre, who might be getting drafted, next week, making plays. But things seem to click at the perfect moment in each game to swing the momentum in the favor of FAU. So it's
memorable. It was so huge in that game with those sacks. Pierre, you mentioned the interceptions. Remember, that was also the game, though, that, Western Kentucky might have been tinkering a little bit and trying to mess things up a little bit because we had to fly to Nashville with whatever problems they were apparently having in the Bowling Green.
That's right.
A long bus ride going up, and that would have been a real long bus ride going back in Nashville if they didn't get the job done that night. But they did and took a whole lot.
Right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, typically we would fly right into Bowling Green to go to Western Kentucky, and we always stay at the same Holiday Inn, and we still go to the same restaurant. Double Dogs. Except we went to that place with the wood interior. It looked like a cabin this time around.
Yeah.
I don't remember what. It was fun. It was good.
They had some fire mac and cheese. That's what I remember.
It was solid. But it's always the same routine, except that they gave us some BS this season that the airport wasn't.
They didn't have a fire truck.
Yeah, they didn't have a fire truck on the plane, and so we had to fly into Nashville, and that's like an hour drive. Like that's not a short trek by any stretch. And Lane was complaining about it, as he should. Like it's complete garbage. I mean,
they salty that Friday night.
Yeah, and it was. There's no way that was actually true.
Right.
It's that Western Kentucky broadcast setup too is always hilarious because every year we go there and it is cold. I mean, it is. As soon as the sun goes down behind that water tower in the distance outside of the stadium, you're in for a frigid time. In 2017, Rusty Smith was up in the booth with us. He brought his kids and his wife. And I remember being up there thinking to myself, at least there are more bodies in this booth to warm it up a little bit. And this year we had Danny Moore and Monty. That's another thing too. Like we need to tell everyone, like Monty Kiffin was in the broadcast booth with us every single single road trip was a legitimate part of the radio broadcast team, which was an absolute thrill. But it's always gets, and they always promise us a space heater in that broadcast booth because it's completely wide
Never.
open. There's no windows, nothing. It's completely wide open. You're in the elements. There's a covering over your head, but it's a wide open window. They always say, "Oh, there will be a space heater." Space heater. We walk in, never
Never.
a space heater. They're
Never.
all dirty liars at Western Kentucky, all of
Never.
them.
It's
By
horrible.
the way, it was where we went that Friday night. That was good. That was actually a recommendation from my school's athletic director, who was a
Oh yeah.
long-time college basketball assistant coach that went through the Sun Belt and Conference USA, and he was too familiar with Bowling Green. But I got to give a hat to
Where'd we go?
Yeah.
I forgot where we went. I was just hoping that.
What was the name of it?
Montana Grill, it was called.
There you go.
Oh,
Okay.
Cabin
Okay.
Grill, yeah.
I was hoping we didn't make it downtown. We Ken and Rowitz, they've had their pleasures downtown. Bowling
Yeah,
Green.
Mikey, there is a downtown
But-
Bowling Green, Kentucky. I recommend never going there.
Never going there, especially if it's Halloween weekend. You don't want to do
Yeah.
that.
It's
It's
just
not.
bad news.
It's not the place. You know.
No.
It's not-
No. There's some bad seeds down there.
we should have been wearing gloves before we went there.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just not worth it. But you know, this was what, 2 weeks ago. I had someone ask me, "Oh, what was it like the Conference USA title game with Lane Levy?" And I couldn't quite put it into a short, compact summary, but it was. I feel like we're past the statute of limitations now, where we can at least talk about that day a little bit.
It was weird.
And just the Conference USA title game, and we knew Lane was on his way out. Like, we had a feeling, we didn't know for sure.
Everybody had to kind of feel that there was enough rumors and smoke that were coming out, and before the championship game, Conference USA does a good job of whatever team is hosting it. They put out a nice dinner for the team media relations people, which FAU's got a tremendous staff that helps us out with. Visitors from UAB were coming into town a couple years ago. It was people from North Texas. So it's a great dinner. And even by then, you were seeing more and more things popping up on Twitter and social media from reputable websites, not just from,
like we had a feeling. We didn't know. That whole week, we had heard Arkansas, and then we had heard Ole Miss, and then we had heard Arkansas again, and it was just back and forth. And Bartels, Mikey, and I are communicating the whole week, and I was the one closest to Lane, and I didn't even know. You remember the coaches show that week? I ended up going to Lane's office because he did not want to go to the coaches show in person. And I still don't know from his standpoint if that was the right call. This is me personally. Lane probably knows better than me. And but for me, I wish he would have gone to see the fans that were out there each week one more time. Like that's what I tried to explain it to him, that maybe that would be the way to go. But again, like Lane made his decision, and he knew by that point, I'm sure it was going to be Ole Miss. So I recorded his part of the coach's show in his office. And we went from there, but that's when I knew he was gone, because there's no way he's not showing up to the coach's show if he was staying in Boca. So I thought that everything from his standpoint was handled well with his departure, except for the fact that I wish he would have saw the fans one more time. Because, there's the same group of people out there each week, dedicated fans, make it a point of making that a big part of their week, and I wish you would have said goodbye to them.
Yeah, take some pictures with them, maybe. I mean, those crew that comes out to the big garden and the shows are hosted.
Yeah, and I'm not ripping Lane. Like I promise, I'm not ripping Lane.
I just feel bad for the really dedicated fans out there that supported the program, supported him, supported the beer garden and the other hosts of the show. And I think day of the championship game, while everything else was swirling around him, including even during the post-game trophy presentation, Lane was great about it.
Well, he absolutely was. And I go down and I do the coaches interview before the team gets onto the field for warm-ups. I go down and I wait for the team to get there. You guys are up in the booth setting up, and I go down and wait outside of Lane's office, whether it's home or the road. And what's funny about that is that with Partridge, I used to go into his office on a Thursday and do the pregame interview. Lane, he would always forget it. That we actually had it scheduled the first 2 weeks he was coach. So he just said, we'll do it at the stadium. And that's how we did it then for the remainder of the 3 years he was at FAU. Yeah. So you remember that morning on College Game Day, there was the clip that they showed right at the onset of Lane's son chanting SEC, SEC, SEC. And I believe that Lane's ex-wife took the video and College Game Day played it. And that's before the team even got to the stadium. And people around FAU were like, oh my God, what does that mean? What does that mean? And it was clear what that meant, what was happening. But I'm waiting outside of Lane's office. Lane had already told the CBS Sports Network people that we're going to put a pregame interview in the can. Do not bring up the coaching situation. Do not bring up the SEC. Do not bring up Ole Miss. And to my understanding is they said we can't guarantee that. So his response was, well, I can't guarantee that we're going to do a pregame interview then. So needless to say, CBS Sports Network did not ask him about it in the pregame interview. But the first thing Lane says to me when I go into his office is not, hey, man, what's up? Or, hey, you ready to go for today? It's, did you see the SEC chant that my son was doing on game day? How awesome is that? He was just pumped. And my first thought was, uh-oh. I'm not sure that Lane is super focused on the situation at hand today, but he very quickly and the team very quickly answered the question about whether or not they were focused. But the whole day was just super surreal because we knew it was coming, and that was the first time any of us at FAU had ever experienced anything like that.
Well, I think part of Lane's exit, first of all, he earned it. It's just like any type of job situation where you perform, you get raised or you get poached to go to a different company, whatever the case is, you earn it. Go ahead and take it. But I think he did a terrific job about always making it about the kids, always about the players. Talking to some of the players, during the weeks, before they were going to the championship game, and you hear some rumors and things like that. They were focused. They weren't worried about it. They weren't worried about who the next coach was going to be, if there was going to be a next coach. So I think the staff in total, with Lane being the point man, did a terrific job of just saying, we got this game. And I think that's just him. It became their team, the players' team, about midway through the season, just like it did in 2017. 2018, we didn't really see it. But 2019, that team kind of took over themselves, started governing themselves, making it about them. And just about how he prepared the kids and how the kids kind of just embodied and adopted the philosophy of what was going on. But like you said, as soon as
the Kentucky game, was that around the same time that he, and we talked about this on the pregame show, we're not talking out of school here, but they had a little tradition of Lane would run those Friday evening team meetings and basically run through everything. And then there's a point in the season where he would start transitioning. He'd step back and a player from each position group would come up. Take care of the meeting. And it might have actually been that Western Kentucky weekends that they really started to transition over. And you'd see, the junior Diaz's coming up to the front of the room to hold their other guys in their little room in their position group, and then ultimately the whole team accountable for each other.
Yeah. Well, and that's something we saw pretty much all of 2017 in those meetings. And then in 2018, it seemed forced. Like the whole season just was – it seemed forced. 2018, just you could tell things were not the same. Right. And then they were very cautious. You could tell this year about it in their team meetings on that Friday night. Lane really did run the show for the first, 5-6 weeks, but it was that Western Kentucky game where the players got back up there and started addressing the team. And that's where everything changed. And that's where Lane always had a great feel for where those guys were in 2017 and 2019. And it was really, really impressive. But I still maintain, as surreal and weird as the Conference USA title game Saturday was, because there was nothing normal about that except for the fact that I think we all knew that we'd be hoisting a trophy, even with the quote-unquote distractions. The Boca Raton Bowl was the damnedest thing I've ever seen. Like I really truly believe FAU had no business winning that game,
No.
at least with the suspensions or the decisions to sit out because, and rightfully so, to prepare for the NFL. So shorthanded, and it was absurd that FAU was in the game at the onset, and then B, that they blew out SMU. Like it's to me, that was one of the most proudest times I've experienced, I've consumed in my time at FAU, because there was no business for any of that. And it was an overwhelming and complete thorough domination. And I did not see it coming at all. And I know that I'm a natural pessimist, but I truly didn't
Hell
see
yeah.
that coming at all. And that was shocking to me. And I still think about it. I'm like, man, how did that happen? And how awesome was that?
Yeah, I mean, we figured they would take care of business in the conference championship game, even if there were the distractions. And Lane,
it was just better than UAB.
Let's win one more with Lane, put a capper on it, and then see what happens with the bowl game.
Yeah.
Unlike 2017, where you figured you were probably considerably better than Akron.
That's a fact.
This game against SMU, where a couple of weeks ago, all projections have FAU maybe going to Dallas or another another bowl that they have not been able to play in before, as opposed to staying home for the Boca Raton Bowl that they had just been in and captured 2 years ago. So then to stay home, you wonder if that's a bit of a letdown. You know that Lane's not there. SMU coming in, and for that team, and it's such a tremendous job by Glenn Spencer and Coach Weiss and the whole rest of the staff who still was in place, because I think it was everybody except Lane and Kevin Smith were still on the sidelines, at least for that game. Over at Tomball at Saturday afternoon, and for them to just come out and say, you know what, this is our team still. You don't hold any grudge against Lane for moving on. Maybe the fact that he showed up that day wasn't the best idea, but for some of these other kids, they say, hey, we for a lot of us, we're not going to be Harrison Bryant going to get our name called in the draft next weekend and going to play on Sundays. This could be our highlight, so we're going to go out on top. And boy, they
I keep finding myself frustrated for Coach Taggart because there's nothing that he can do right now. I mean, you can only make so many canned videos and put stuff out on social media and make announcements about recruits committing. I'm sure for him, it's really, really frustrating that he can't get in front of his full team. He's missed all of spring ball and no spring game, and a chance to sort of get some traction with this new gig. But I'm excited to see what's going to come with him, because it's just endless energy with him. And I kind of, this is full disclosure, other than a couple of coaches shows with him, I still don't know him particularly well. That's always tough in a coaching transition. I've been through plenty of them, whether it's football or basketball. That takes time to develop that relationship. So
it's not easy to trust you either, though, Ken. So you gotta take that into account. There's a whole trust factor. I mean,
it's tough. It's tough.
You're an intimidating guy.
Yeah, exactly.
The way you've been working out lately. But I agree with you, though, Ken. You don't have the ability to gauge who's on your roster. You mentioned before we started, we're not going to speculate on who's going to be on the two deep. Who the hell knows on the roster or on campus anyway?
Right. And the one thing I would caution FAU fans, though, freaking out about is changes to the roster, whether it is guys who might not be back or guys who have decided to take a grad transfer situation. It's very legitimate that it could have happened regardless of the circumstance or the situation. John Rain has every right to try and play his senior year at a Power 5 school. Miko Dotson led the damn nation in interceptions. He has every right to, and I want to make sure FAU fans remember this. He was an ACC player to start with. And we were very fortunate to have him in an FAU uniform after he went to Garden City. Now he's headed back to the ACC. Those guys have the absolute right to do those things, and they should take advantage of that. God knows FAU has benefited from that more often
Right.
than not. So, listen, this stuff happens with every coaching transition, even on a year-to-year basis, even if it's the same coach, you don't know what's going to happen in the group of five. So don't panic, don't freak out. I mean, in my mind, FAU is without question, hopefully once we get football going, the top team in the conference.
For sure. For sure. For sure. Fellas, I got to get a re-up, man. I don't know if we want to keep it rolling. Want to pick up another day?
Let's, Mikey, what do you think, buddy? You want to go another 10 and let
Yeah,
Bartels go get freshened up here?
Take it to the top of the hour. Let Bartels freshen up.
All
There
right.
you go.
All
I
right.
love it. I love it.
Yeah. No, and I think, and Chris and I had discussed this, recently. We won't mention when or where Ken was. But
I was, we were supposed to do this a week and a half ago, and I couldn't get my daughter to bed there.
So much of the transition that Coach Taggart and the new staff have had coming in, you think that they're doing a great job with recruiting, doing a pretty good job of getting everything filled and built, and then the carpet is just yanked out from under them, as it's been for coaches all across the country, but especially for someone like them, or even Coach Dominion, or even Lane at Ole Miss, Mike Leach leaving Pat Chun and Washington State to go to Mississippi State, and getting himself in trouble right away. No surprise. But those first-year coaches, and we're in that group of that adjustments is going to be extra tricky for the new staffs, the new systems that are being put in place, and you can only do so much over a Zoom meeting as opposed to actually especially in the new Schmidt Center, which was so good when we would get to be there and actually experience all of it on signing day back in February. And then you can't really take advantage of all of that now. You can't take advantage of the spring practices. Today, that would have been the spring game. See how the team's looking on the field. See how there are certain guys that were looking to step up and fill bigger roles this year. And you feel bad they're getting robbed of that, but I still think come the fall, number one, I'm still confident that the season's going to kick off on time.
I get the sense that that's going to be the case, too. I agree with you.
And I do think that there is still enough talent and leadership from the players on this team that they will be in good shape. And as we've discussed since the hiring was announced and he joined us for the broadcast of Boca Raton Bowl, Willie Taggart's never stepped into a position where things were already set up and ready, made to win when he got there, as he is now with FAU and the talent that's already on this roster.
Let's talk about that. What you brought up was Coach Taggart at the Boca Raton Bowl. I cannot remember in my 13, 14 years at FAU a coach, especially a football coach, who has dedicated an entire quarter to just hanging out in the broadcast booth and being in the broadcast booth. He was there the entire second quarter or third quarter with us. And to immerse himself, he didn't have to be with us for that period of time and for that extended amount of time, but decided that it was in his best interest to A, send a message over the radio broadcast, B, get to know us, and C, sort of immerse himself into something that he's not going to directly be a part of, but we are his conduits to the public on a regular basis, on a game day, and he understands that. I was just really wildly impressed by that because I haven't seen anything like that. And I'm not disparaging other coaches, and I'm sure that that's not at the front of their minds, nor should it be. But in a day that is such a momentous day at FAU, for him to take the time and understand, hey, I should probably get to know these people, and this is important. I thought that was really, really, really strong. And that's why I already would be, but I'm rooting for Willie so much because, as he said, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's still feeling some of the humiliation that came from what's happening at Florida State. I can't tell you how many times in my replies on Twitter when I tweet about Coach Taggart, I have Florida State fans saying just awful things about him. I hope he comes to FAU, wins 11 games, and completely turns his back on anything garnet and gold after that. He treated terribly.
Yeah, I think with him being up in the booth, exactly like you say, Ken, I wish coaches knew that we are their ally. You know,
Always. We're not
there's
media.
never been a time where somebody has whatever attacked or said something bad about one of our coaches, and I've agreed with it. I've always and we've done the same thing. You know, where you kind of stick up for the coach. It's our university just as much as it is the coaches, just as much as it is the players. And so him to be up there, but I also think Ken, he had to get a bird's eye view. He was there evaluating. So even though he doesn't get a spring, he had that extra game to evaluate the talent, evaluate the coaches and their body language. A lot of those coaches in that game had no idea if they were going to be back.
Yeah, sure.
Thankfully, Trickett's going to be back and a few other guys are going to be back. Nord are going to be back, but for a good portion of that staff, their jobs were in limbo. Who knows what they were going to do? And so for him to be up there, get a kind of view of everything, got to meet him. I think I spoke with him more that day than I did Lane all 3 years that he was there. So that's I feel like Willie and I, just for that being said, we're kind of like best friends at this point.
Hey, you're BFFs.
I'm holding on to that too.
Yeah, that's right, as you should. But I think that's a good point too, Chris. And Mikey, I know that you're 100% on board with this. Like, I think fans sometimes don't understand too. Like, we're not media. And I don't mean to be doing like a fake news thing or anything. And media certainly, I wish there was more media covering FAU. It would only be better things for the program and for their athletics and for the university. But we're not media. We are a mouthpiece. We were the mouthpiece of Howard Schnellenberger. And we were the mouthpiece of Carl Pelini. And we were the mouthpiece of Charlie Partridge. We were the mouthpiece of Lane Kiffin. And we are Coach Taggart's mouthpiece. Like, that's what so if things are going south and I have fans in my Twitter mentions saying, why don't you ask him the tough questions at the coaches show? Want to know why? Because that's not my job. I'm not there to Barbara Walters Lane Kiffin. Like, that's not my role. And the only reason I can ask tough questions, which I did of Lane or Charlie Partridge, is because you develop that trust.
Right.
And that takes time. But also, there's a factor involved where they know I've been there for a while. You've been there for a while, Chris. You played there. You're a former champion or a former captain. Mike's been a part of it. Like, you develop that trust because we've earned that, I feel like.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's just FAU is just as much a part of me as it is for any other player or staff that goes through there. And for me, it's a little bit different. I feel like you said, Ken, people think of us as media, and I'm grateful that we get to go to that media dinner before the conference championship.
You don't have to pay for anything.
That's amazing. I look forward to that. I hope we go to a conference championship, not because the players enjoy finesse and stuff, but because there's bottomless drinks and a plethora of appetizers to go around. And at that time, I had a designated driver, so I'm good with that. But from being a former player to now being in like this weird limbo where people kind of see you as media, but you're actually, like you said, a mouthpiece for the program. It's tricky. I wish more people knew that. There's a ton of people on Twitter, like you said. You mentioned Willie. I have a ton of friends who are, Florida State fans or whatever, and I mentioned his name, and they're just like, oh, gosh. Dude, relax, bro. Like, the dude never entered a winning program. You don't have to be part of FAU, so don't worry about what he's doing until we play you guys in a bowl game sometime.
Right.
That.
You're exactly right, and that's the thing too. Is I hope after all of this, Willie's able to put that chapter to bed. But I certainly get the sense, just based off his words and being around him, that's going to fuel him. Is that he wants to prove to himself and prove to people that I succeeded. I was the hottest coaching candidate in the nation 2 years ago. It should still not that much changes in 2 years,
right.
And so I'm just looking forward to seeing what Willie can do. But for all of the FAU fans fretting about some of the names that are grad transfers or who might not be back, or Willie trying to install his offensive system, every other team in the country is going through the same thing right now. They're all going to be working on the fly, and they're all going to likely be going through an expedited process before they get on the field. And so don't worry there's enough coming back, including really for one of the first times in FAU history, in a Conference USA Player of the Year caliber quarterback who's returning to FAU. There's not going to be quarterback competition. There's not going to be any of that stuff. And so all in all, like, it's just part of the reason I think we're hearing some of this, Mikey, is because there's nothing else going on. And so people have time to talk to themselves and talk themselves into worst case scenario. And it's driving people mad when it should.
Yeah, no, and everybody's going with a lot of hypotheticals right now, whether it's related to the virus, related to life after things are, trying to trend back, getting to normal, and of course, what things will look like in the football fields. I'm confident again. Willie Taggart has dealt with enough over the last few years and other stops that he's been at previously that things will be okay for FAU come the fall. All right, we will get to Minnesota hopefully on time. Thursday night, September 3rd, we'll kick things off. You'll have, Robinson, you'll have a backfield that's loaded. I'm thrilled that Jeff Nard, who did a tremendous job with that offensive line this year, is one of the coaches that got held over from Lane staff to stick around. I think that consistency will be huge. So I'm really, really excited, man. I wish not only just so we'd have something to do over these last few days and weeks outside, but I just was so bummed when, it started to look obvious that it was not going to be spring practice, not going to have a spring game, because I would have loved to have seen everything from the way the new systems and schemes were getting installed.
Yeah.
Also, the different pieces would fit for Jim Levitt's defense, which is going to be obviously much different than Glenn Spencer's. But I think that this coaching staff has a ton of veterans on it, and the consistency that was already there, things will be trending in the right direction for FAU come the fall once again. And I'm just jacked up, cannot wait for it to get here. Absolutely.
You sound like you just drank a Red Bull, and I'm with you. I need to get some Red Bull to put in my drink. That was amazing. Let's go, man. Hey, Ken, call Coach up now. Let's get him on the Zoom call. Let's stop playing around.
You realize what's going to happen is that it's going to be an expedited process, and I'm going to feel out of the loop, and I'm just going to have to lean on Bartels for some football 101, and I'll just call the game and act like I know what I'm talking about, parodying things that Bartels told me. Like, that's just the process. That's how
Turning around looking for Monty Kiffin for some help, and he won't be there.
That's not going to be there. Oh, that's so hurtful.
That's going to hurt.
But let's try and do this again next week, and we'll talk about what a typical game day is like for us and the preparation and getting into that, and then what it's like in game. Some of the because I think some of the funniest things happen with us three in the actual booth during the game. Some of the reactions. And we'll get into that, and
we'll also you can't hear Ken say when we go to break.
Yeah, we'll
No, next week, though, Harrison Bryant is going to probably be drafted.
That's a great
point. I would say it's going to happen Friday nights. You have like an over-under. Like if I gave you the over-under of the 60th selection in the draft, you going over or under for Harrison Bryant? Under meaning taking 1 through 59.
I'm gonna say under.
You're going within the top 60 picks.
I think because the way that these teams are going to draft, that it's going to be a lot different than just by going combine numbers. You look at this kid's stats, there's not a tight end in the nation that sticks with him. You look at his measurables and what he did at the combine, they don't have a lot of information on a private workout and all this other stuff. They have to go strictly by how he performed. He's the best tight end in the nation. He should be the first tight end off the board. Easy.
What has bothered me a little bit, and again, I'm not a scout, and I can't stand draft time because people that, football fans generally are not breaking down film, and all of a sudden they think that they are wise, pigskin sages. But he's not getting enough credit in scouting reports, in my mind, for his hands.
Right.
There's a lot of he holds blocks well. He's a willing blocker. Needs to work on blocking, but is a willing blocker, and that's where he's going to go to either the Steelers or the Patriots. But what about his hands? I mean, this guy showed over and over and over again he could make catches in traffic. He could hang on during contact. He could go up and make a hands catch. He could bring it into his body. He's more than just a blocking tight end, and the team that drafts to be a blocking tight end is selling themselves woefully short.
Yeah, I don't know. Just watching him play, there's a handful of guys that I would not want to defend ever. He's one of those guys because
he's built like an anvil.
Yeah, he's gonna make a catch whether you guard him or not because he catches well. But then once he makes a catch, he is physical. He's not. There are a lot of players, a lot of tight ends who are going to make a catch, kind of stiff arm you, and step out of bounds. He's not one of those guys. You know what I mean? So I think Mikey under 60. He's going. He's going to be drafted late second round. A surprise late second round.
All right, within the top 64 for sure. I definitely think it's going to happen Friday night. We'll hope James Pierre maybe can get his name called this weekend as well. Otherwise, it definitely seems like he'll be in demand on the undrafted free agent side of things. I just go, you talk about Harry B and then yards after contact. I think back to that last road trip of the year we had down at the Alamo, San Antonio. Roadrunners were just bouncing off of him. And I think, he will open some eyes and have himself a nice NFL career coming up. We're certainly wishing him well, and we're certainly looking forward to the next time we get to chat with you guys.
Yeah, Absolutely. We'll do this again next week. And also, I want to leave with this. Rashad Smith will be on an NFL roster once that season gets going as well. He will be on someone's sideline.
I think furthermore to add to that, Ken, he will be starting whenever the NFL gets going again. He'll be starting on somebody's roster. He's that good.
Love it. But gentlemen, this was fun, man. We'll do this again next week, and we'll try and satiate FAU football fans' needs for at least some sort of football discussion. But we'll do it again next week, and be safe, you guys. Be good, and FAU fans, thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week. All right.
Take care, guys.
Stay healthy. Go out.
All right.